Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ricky Show, Ricky Williams, as we now pivot to Ricky bringing on guests, which I'm a little nervous. I have no idea why Brian Holland is here, and I'm not going to say I'm a control freak. I'm not. I'm letting go of the reins, and Ricky is going to take over. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm taking over, but I'm following your lead. I think a lot of the guests have been colleagues, students of yours. And so I thought, I finally get to invite I finally get to invite a guest. And and our the podcast has evolved into more general astrology conversation, but I think our roots are still in gender and culture. And I think I'm unique for astrologers, one that I was a professional football player, but the first really big marketing push that I ever did for my astrological practice was on a sports podcast. And so I mean, it's crazy. I did like 20K of worth of readings in 1 month um, it's crazy, off of this podcast. Um, and it was like 80% sports fans, men sports fans. The other 20% were female sports fans. Um, and so have a bunch of wonderful astrological conversations with sports fans, and some of them stuck. Some of them became students, and Brian was one of them. And my big push is I think more men, all kinds of men, more men should be into astrology. I think it would improve the quality of their lives and the lives of all the people that they are connected to. So I thought we got a guy's guy here in Brian, and I say that because he was an athlete, in Aries. So
Nice. What
yeah,
sport?
Basketball.
with
Basketball.
basketball. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Is your beard red?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some Aries red going on, a little iron in the system. Okay.
Yeah, she's on it. Yeah, yeah. I found with golf and basketball a lot of Sagittarius energy. You
Hmm.
know, and and the way I think about it, right, the glyph for Sagittarius is the the bow, and the symbol is the archer. And the thing about the archers, they're doing something athletic, an athletic move here that has an end result that's down there. All right, so I talk about philosophy. If you're talking to an archer about how do you make it hit the bullseye, they might share their philosophy. If I pull it back this far and I aim it at this angle and I let it go, usually it hits the mark. And then you think of shooting a basketball or hitting a golf ball, it's something that's done right here, and we're expecting it to hit the mark somewhere down there.
Hmm. Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of aiming in sports. Golf is like actually kind of a little evil because like the be worse you are at aiming, the longer you have to play. I grew up on a golf course, so I can speak to that. But
Yeah,
you like,
yeah,
Brian, do you like aiming at things?
Definitely. Definitely like taking a shot or two, you know.
yeah. So for me, I'm curious. Just in general, like what are the main things in your life, or how has your life changed since you really started to, as a guy, get into astrology?
Mm. Well, first I'd just like to say thank you to both of you for bringing me on the show and give thanks blessing us with this opportunity to sit down and have this conversation. And And that right there, I think is one of the things is that it's really brought me back onto a spiritual path and connecting with the divine and really firm helping me firm my own be more firm in my own beliefs while being open, while still remaining open to knowing that I don't know everything. And so I believe what I believe now, but knowing that more experiences will come and that there's room for evolution in this.
Hmm, nice. And
I
is
think,
that, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Andy.
well, there's something really beautiful about when like masculine males take on astrology because I do think there's something beautiful about a masculine being spiritual. Like it's like because I feel like a lot of people think equate spirituality with like being feminine or being kind of an underdog in life or like you know like oh those woo-woo astrologers are down there on the bottom of the rung, you know. And I think when hyper masculine males take on astrology is you're just like it's a little bit like whoa, you know, kind of like what they could do with that is just I think it's beautiful.
I think you're onto something because the question I was going to ask, a little surprised by Brian's answer. Question I was going to ask is that what you expected? Is that what you were looking for, or did it just kind of
Uh,
happen?
it just kind of happened. Like if I if I think back, well, when I think back to talking with you the first time, right? The in your questionnaire, right? There was, well, what are you looking for? And I remember I typed in, I just wanted to talk about life after sports, right? So since I had finished playing, my my life had kind of like returned to what it was when I was in my previous gap between college and overseas. And um and then um my father passed away, and then the pandemic started, and I just really felt like I had been on pause or on hold, and knew that I needed something, right? I just needed something, some help, some guidance. Um, and I listening to you on the podcast, like you had mentioned, and there's just something about the way you were talking about things and the perspective that you were putting on things that made me feel like, there's something here because there's thoughts in my head that he's saying. And so like I really feel like I can trust this person to give me sound advice on how to step forward and continue on my path as opposed to just continue to sit here,
Yeah,
right? And you even helped me to release some of the judgment, right? The Jupiter, the Sag, the same thing as the belief, right? Also the judgment that I had been doing something wrong or anything like that. And to see that there was still so much more ahead of me. And so just allowing myself to not necessarily be looking for something in particular, and to trust and have faith that if I get back up and continue walking and uh, kind of return back to the roots a little bit, growing up, right? Pisces on the cusp of the fourth house, so the Jupiter's in the fourth house or rules the fourth house, the Neptune also, and then my son in the fourth house. So like I grew up in a really spiritual home, right? A very religious home too, but there was a lot of spirituality there. And so when I got back up and started walking and it was what I found was that this this seed of spirituality that my parents had left with me was ready to start ready to start growing. And and yeah, it's been really beautiful.
yeah. No, I feel like there's this thing with men, especially masculine men, is like we spend so much of our youth trying to prove that we're men. And some of us do it, and then after we prove that we're a man, it's like, what's next? You
Yeah.
know? It's like, what's next? And I think that's what I'm picking up, Andrea, what you said about masculine men and spirituality. Because we think of spirituality, it's spirit. And to me, that it goes, and it's not necessarily a ranking, but it goes matter and then spirit, right? That there's a separation. And because when we're first born, we don't really know how to use the matter, we have to kind of figure that out. I think of the first half of life is just trying to figure out how to work this machinery. It's how to deal with the body, the matter. But once we do that, it starts to get boring, it starts to get old, and so we need something more. And I think of spirituality. I've been thinking about this a lot. I was watching the Karate Kid, the newer Karate Kid movie with Jaden Smith with my 4 year old, and I was having flashbacks to the one that came out when we were kids. And in both movies, they start off right, wax on, wax off, and then the second one, take off your jacket, hang it up, take it off, put it down. It's this again matter. It's this routine stuff, you know. And then in the movie, they both get to the point where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I thought I was going to learn karate, or I thought I was going to learn something. And then that's when the teacher said, You have been. And then they started to show them that they've been learning the whole time. And I think at least that's been my experience of proving that I was a man. And then the only thing left, right? I could make a lot of money and conquer the earthly stuff. The only thing left was spirituality. But all of the things that I learned as a football player and doing all those things carried over, and I applied them to spirituality. And so I do think that there is a feminine type of spirituality, and I think there's a masculine type of spirituality. But at least in this country, because right, most of the women are doing the spirituality stuff, we don't really get to see enough what masculine spirituality looks like and what it's capable of.
I'm feeling a totally a new platform coming on here, which is where we just take the astrology to the men. Okay, but I want to talk about this for a second. So what I heard from Brian is there's something called existential boredom, which is when we don't know what we're supposed to do next, or you're bored at that level, like Rick, you're talking about, like I figured out as a man and now I'm kind of bored, and that is a type of boredom. Like I actually got this book called The Boredom Problem Solved, and it talks about existential boredom as like one of the most deep kinds of boredom. Like, what do I do next? And I think this is a case where astrology answers questions that nothing else answers. Astrology says, well, what you can do next is this transit wants you to do X, Y, Z. And like astrologers actually don't suffer from existential boredom because we're like, oh, Pluto's gone into my fifth house and I'm going to start doing this. So when we look at transits, we're solving our existential boredom with these new activities that we're going to take up. And so I think we can look at astrology here as additive, not subtractive. Brian is being added to by learning astrology now because now he knows how to handle his existential boredom. What do I do after sports? Well, now I know I'm going to tick along with these transits and start developing myself. And so I think Brian has become a stronger male because of having this astrological tool. It has not subtracted anything from him. It's not taken away his masculinity. He's actually a more excellent human than he was before the astrology layer was painted upon him. So I just wanted to say that.
Hmm. Yeah, what do you think about that, Brian?
Well, thank you. It sounds like a compliment. But yeah, um it's definitely unlocked parts of myself that like they've always been there, right? They all of the parts of us have always been there, and they've just allowed new pieces to come out and to be interested in new things and to right like kind of like Ricky was talking about, to understand that, oh, like all that stuff in basketball, there's a lot of useful things that I learned beyond like bouncing a ball and shooting a ball, which isn't so useful. But there were a lot of really useful lessons in there that if I just take the time, right, they're there that I can apply them now. And astrology, right? And you're talking about the transits, right? When I stay updated on my chart, sometimes the flashbacks to, oh, I've been here before, right? I've been in this situation before. It was a basketball version of it, so but same story, different characters, different setting, but same story. And oh, I can use this moment right now, and it feels kind of like film study, right? Where there's a moment in the game where don't really know how, right? Because it's just like a deep knowing of, oh, this is what he's gonna do, and so I can go there first. Or if I do this, he'll react this way, so then I can make the next move and go. And yeah, so by by using astrology to do my own film study on myself, again with doing my best to relieve the judgment, because there are plenty of things that I'm watching the film and going, oh man, I stepped out of bounds, or I fouled, or I did this, I did that. It's like, okay, but that's still a learning opportunity, because that moment is very likely to show up again in a more real world version outside of the game, and that's when it matters.
Hmm.
And that's been a little bit more of the mentality and the approach that I've been going with, with this aid, with this tool. Um, and yeah, the doors just seem to continue to open.
Okay, I have to say something, which is it's interesting that you called it a film study of yourself because in enlightenment theory, what you're supposed to do is learn to watch your own life like a movie. And I think astrology is a tool for enlightenment in as much as it teaches us to kind of look at ourselves like a film. Like the transits are happening right now. Like I am in an episode where I'm having a fight, right? Like we astrologers almost like calculate emotions, but that's actually enlightenment because we watch it like a movie as opposed to like I'm in it, I'm angry, like all this kind of stuff. So I that's really interesting that you call it a film study of yourself. That is brilliant, honestly.
Well, it's the idea of that I think we can, when we talk about feminine and masculine, we can talk about biophysiology, but we can also talk about experiences, because there are certain experiences that men tend to have more than women and vice versa. And and so one of the things of watching film, and I think women who play team sports, right, will relate to this, watching film. But that's what we do. It's like in college, in high school, in the pros, they have a saying, the eye in the sky never lies. You know? And that after every practice, after every game, we go back and we watch the film, because the starting point is Tuesday, our first day of practice. We get a scouting report of the opponent. Right? We have an objective to win, and this is what the other team does well. This is what the other team doesn't do well. This is what our game. Then we get the game plan. This is how we're going to attack them to win the game, and then we spend the rest of the day installing the game plan, everyone learning exactly what they're supposed to do, the part that they have to play. And we do that all week. And we watch film after every day of practice to say, oh, you could have done this better, or maybe we should do this, and maybe we should do this. And then we have the game, and it's on. It's on. And we get to see if we're victorious or not. And because I've done that over on repeat over and over and over and over again, it was like built in as a template of a way to approach life. Is that typically if we set out to do something, that we're seeking to accomplish something. And there's going to be obstacles, things that get in our way, and there's going to be things that we do well that can help us be successful. And so for me, learning astrology and learning my internal scouting report and my game plan, depending on what I want to accomplish, and I feel like I'm a head coach, because the head coach has all, or I think of chess, you got all the pieces that you can move. And I think of myself as the head coach or the chess player, and the pieces that I'm working with are called the planets in my chart, and my weaknesses and my strengths, and to see how can I use who I am, what I bring to bear, what I have inside of me to accomplish whatever task that I'm setting out to do. And that's a very masculine military way of thinking about astrology, but how fulfilling, how fulfilling to be more successful in life.
Oh my God, I'm so down with it. Like, okay, people are okay, here's a feminine way. Um, I wonder what's gonna happen to me when Mars hits my moon.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why are you such a beta to the planets? Like you'd be like, I love your approach where you're like, well, Mars will be hitting the scouting report. It's on Mars
Yes.
approaching my moon, and I will be using that to wield a sword and have a fight with, you know what? I love
Exactly.
that.
100%. Yes. Yes. I think that
Sorry, I talk so
potentially
fast, Brian. I got a Gemini rising.
it might mess. I'm telling you, it's going to mess things up for women, but because men are going to bring that masculine attitude to astrology, and I can see it, right? We joked about this before we started recording, but like for me, when we get into arguing with my wife, and I have the scouting report and the game plan, so I'm just like, just look at the chart. right? Then we can actually have a conversation. It doesn't have to be an argument, right? And a conversation, because anything that comes up between me and you, right, you're going to see it in the chart. And at least if we can understand what am I bringing to this argument conversation and get a sense of what the other person is bringing to it, scouting report and game plan, we
Well,
can
I
be more
want to tell you
effective.
how things go at my house because I have a
Please.
Sun Square Mars. Okay, so every night from 10:30 to 11:30, my man and I meet and we do our meeting of the day, right? And sometimes a transit will come up. Like he just had a transit, his moon opposed Mars, and I'll be drawing the game plan. I'll be like, all right, so I've noticed this transit started to hit you. Okay, it's gonna go on for 8 more days. All right, so maybe I think what we could do at the workplace is you could like really power out on this mania here. I know you're gonna burn yourself out, but like let's get that new empire built over there at the computer. Like I am like that military on transits, but like
That's awesome.
which is but it, you know, and it happens with our kid too. It's like, oh, she's going into this mood. Okay, this is a drawing. This is what I'm seeing. Like this, is how long it's gonna last. Like, and then we set up a game plan about like what are we gonna do about this energy? How are we gonna wield this? And I think we could, Ricky, set out a new way to think about these things. This scouting report idea is really innovative. I've never heard anyone talk about it. And I know you're just applying your sports experience, but I mean, having Brian here too is really helping with that lens. But it's just like getting the scouting report way would be really like I'd love to see an article on that, honestly.
Yeah. I think because an example, when I was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, you know, I kind of threw a little bit of party because now I knew who the opponent was. So I could get my scouting report and my game plan and I could get to work. And again, that's a masculine way of looking at things. And a lot of the things I hear people about astrology, I don't want to be put in a box. I don't want to be defined, you know? And if they're sports fans, I say a college and professional coach would never, ever, 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 ever think about going into a game without a scouting report and a game plan. They wouldn't even consider it. They wouldn't even consider it.
Oh gosh. Well, Brian, how long have you been studying astrology?
Um, it's been about 3 years now, a little over 3 years. I met Ricky for the first time in January of 2022, but I didn't really start full on studying until a few months after that.
So what's your sun, moon, and rising?
Aries sun in the fourth house, the Leo moon in the ninth house, and Sagittarius rising.
Whoa, fire triangle. That is so cool. All right.
Yeah, yeah, and they are all in trines. Like it is a tr full triangle. Yeah.
Well, were you a really good basketball player?
I was good.
Yeah.
I was good. I wasn't NBA good, right? But I was overseas good.
Nice. That's cool. I think that's such a like kinetic like movement based arts is so fire. It's just like such the fire gift, you know, one of them.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
mean,
had to get a little bit of intel, huh?
with all the fire, right? There was a lot of energy. I had a bit of a bad temper, and it was a great place to where I could let that out without getting in trouble,
I was actually
right?
gonna ask if you guys had studied like temper or Mars issues together, you know, as Ricky being your teacher, like, or have you guys looked at that? Sorry, I don't mean to take over the episode.
No, please, no. I'd like you
That's
to.
a good question.
I'd like so not directly because it's not something that he showed that, especially in the beginning, it's something that he kept like kind of hidden from me until we do like immersives here on my property, and so Brian was one of the first people, and we did 3.5 days all day doing astrology stuff, and I did a little cranial, I did a little body work, and I could tell usually about the second night. The second night, people usually hit a wall because it's learning astrology intensely, but it's learning through me with a magnifying glass, looking at your life and being around you all day, picking up the tendencies expressing through the chart. And so after about 2 days of this, people are like, right, it's like you hit the you hit the stop point.
Mhm.
Yeah. And when we hit the stop point, we just really kind of had to stop, and we didn't allow it to go into an argument, but it was like you could tell if we kept trying to keep moving, it would have had to have turned into an argument. And so that was probably the first time he told stories about friends, but that was the first time I felt it in person. And then, so Brian lives in the same town as me. If I need a ride to the airport, he's usually happy to give me a ride. So we've had many, 1 hour trips to the airport. And sometimes we started to get into debates, and I could feel, so he has Jupiter opposing Saturn, and he's a Sag rising. So I could feel when we hit that point, right, where he was trying to be right and he wasn't, and then I could feel the anger because the Aries sun is in the fourth house, right, and I could feel the anger starting to come to the surface, and it was like, okay, I've never seen him really get angry, but I could extrapolate, right, if he didn't have the kind of respect he has for me, that it could easily turn into an argument or a fierce debate.
Do you feel like you just overstim your students on the second day? They're just overstim, and so they're about to punch you.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea. I'm trying to get them to pop. I'm trying to get something to pop.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, part of that experience for me, right, was when we started to get into the timing system, right, the progressions and the transits and like lining them up and going back and seeing all these different like moments in my life, because fortunately for me, like I can remember a lot of dates of things that happened like all the way back to when I was quite young. And so like going through and seeing how it lined up, there was a lot of like overwhelmed by the truth that's here.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
it was definitely really difficult to face. And then like what Ricky's saying, like get confused and then get a little bit like frightened by the situation. My typical response up until now, I think it's refining, but there's definitely a response to that for me that comes out as, oh, I start to get really upset.
Mhm. Yeah, it can be overwhelming when you look into the past and you uncover a lot of stuff. I think it's also equally overwhelming when you start to look into your family dynamics layer and you see the charts of your parents and how those dynamics play out. And yeah, I think overstim does make aggressive people get really aggressive. It's and that's why a lot of kids in class who are really fiery start to like jump up and down when they've like overstimmed mentally. They start like I've watched an occupational therapist like spin this child around while they were trying to integrate some information. And it's like you have to like basically move fire people around to help them integrate information, like have them jump on a trampoline or like there's like all this like studies about it. So it's like yeah, that makes a lot of sense where you would
I
over.
do some of my best thinking on a walk.
Oh yeah, yeah, interesting. Is your Mercury in Taurus?
Uh, no, in Aries.
Okay, okay. Are you the Jupiter and Scorpio opposed Taurus, Saturn and Taurus?
No, Leo opposed Saturn in Aquarius.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, okay. Wow. Okay. Getting to know.
This idea, overwhelmed by truth, I really really like that.
Whoa.
But I'm pro overstimulation, so my tendency is to look for overwhelming truths.
Interesting.
Uh,
Yeah, there's this guy around us at Portland, Eric Purdue, and he's like, I want to look under the skirts of God. That's like his whole reason for learning astrology. That's what like kind of like what you're saying is like overwhelmed by truth. It's like, whoa, like I love that. Like I can see like the spiritual experience people probably have at your property.
yeah, but this idea of overwhelmed by truth, it comes from, I think it's I'd call it a religious wound. You know, it's like that overwhelm when we see that there might be some kind of order,
Hmm.
right? That it's overwhelming because of all of the time and energy we've invested into thinking that the world, unconsciously believing that the world is meaningless. And I think when we're confronted with the fact that this might be a meaningful universe, it can be overwhelming for people. And I would say overwhelming because once you cross over, there's no going back, and there's more people on the planet that haven't crossed over than have, and so it can be kind of lonely and alienating.
That
And so
is so
that's
true.
the
Once you learn astrology, you cannot unlearn it, and it actually makes you more advanced. You become more advanced than people, and it makes it hard to relate. That is actually very true. You know what I would do on your property if people started overstimming? I would start playing the piano. That's what I do. Because
mm,
I'm a Pisces moon, and I would start clearing all their auras with some like the most epic piano music you ever heard.
yeah.
It wouldn't,
But
might be
honestly,
Purple Rain.
I mean, I might be like dark, but I kind of like seeing people like spin. You know, it
So
maybe
Mars and Aries.
maybe and Venus there too. I like it. You know, it's like I like people more when I can see them go through it and come out on the other side. And for me, I create that kind of expectation. It's like I can't wait until the next morning, right, to see what showed up in their dreams, what they studied, what they try to escape, and just to see what's fresh the next morning, so we can do another deep dive and get that stuff out of there.
Mhm. So, Brian, I'm curious for you. Do you watch transits?
Uh, how do you mean?
Like, are you a person who checks the astrological clock daily, or do you kind of go back if something weird happens and then look at the like? What's your style there?
Um, there's nothing rigid really about it. I have a general idea of where things are. So I know my chart, right? So if I can kind of like check the transits just in my head, but I'll refer back to the app to make sure that I'm accurate. And sometimes it'll be like, oh wow, right? Ricky taught me this. Like, what was that? Oh, let me look, right? And other times it is just I wonder, like, let me refresh, right? Refresh the system, check where everything is. Oh, this is here. Okay, and sometimes there's oh, this is perfect timing with what's going on. Like right now, Jupiter square my Mercury. And so I get the text from Ricky about the podcast, and it's like, Jupiter square Mercury. Perfect. Right? And right, so it's kind of in this mix of those two ways that we were talking about earlier of oh, I know this transit is here, so let me proactively like set this up, and the other of oh, I know this transit is here. I wonder what's going to happen, right? I wonder what's going to show up because one of the things that I've been learning with you, Rick, is that oftentimes the transits, the planets show up through other people.
Yeah,
So, right, I don't necessarily know who's going to knock on the door, but when a person comes and shows up and knocks on the door, it's probably going to be Jupiter. Or like this past weekend, it was Mars opposing Venus, right? I had Mars opposing Venus, and I was with another mentor of mine, right? And so I was fully prepared, knowing that I had Mars opposing the ruler of my sixth house for a tough moment to show up. And so then when it did, and it wasn't even a tough moment, but just a moment that made me feel a certain type of way that was kind of Marsy, right? To like, oh, well, good thing I saw this coming. So now I'm not gonna like overreact. I'm just gonna like be here in this moment and trust my training that if I just continue to stay with the work that on the other side of this transit is especially the hard ones, right? On the other side of this hard transit is a blessing, right? But I have to do the work. If I don't do the work, then on the other side of this hard transit might be a disaster, right? But if I show up and I meet that challenge, then on the other side is a gift, right? The benefit of that, like that those two energies, the mix of the Mars and the Venus, right? Them coming together, the integration for more positivity, more good things in my life, right? Like that gift is on the other side of the tough experience. And so um by being aware of that transit when it showed up, it was, oh, all right, I know exactly what this is. And so I knew what to do.
yeah. I'm telling you, I'm listening to you talk, and it feels like you're describing a game. because when I talk about
Mercury in the fifth.
I'm saying when I talk about the game plan and the scouting report, that's the purpose of the game plan and the scouting report. So when you find yourself in that moment, it's like I know what's coming, right? The guard block down, I know the tackle is pulling, and I have to fill the gap. So because we can recognize the moment, because we prepared for it, we're able to, I wrote this down, appreciate the meaning and significance of the moment. Right. And in football or in basketball, we would say make a play, right? You see the opening, make a play because you trust your training. You've been prepared for this moment. Like that's the way I do football, but that's also the way I do life. And I love what you said, because at first it kind of sounded like, oh, confirmation bias, right? If I see this in my chart, then of course it's going to happen. But then as you told the story, it was like you had the game plan and the scouting report. You had a sense that this could happen. And when it did, right, you didn't panic. You could appreciate the significance and the meaning of the moment. Right. And
Maya, that's another one. You make a play on a certain transit. That's epic. Like I'm gonna when Jupiter hits my Mercury, I'm gonna make a play and write this article, or like that's epic.
But that's not exactly that's one way that he said, but the other way I find a little bit more interesting, because it matches to because like in a game, we don't know when they're gonna bring the safety blitz. We don't know. Okay. But we know because we watched the film and we studied that they have a safety blitz that they like to bring on 3rd and long. Right. And then when we get in the game and we see the telltale signs, right? This is safety blitz. We pick it up. We hit the big play. Okay. But we didn't study. We weren't prepared. We're not paying attention. Right. And the look, we don't even see it. The safety blitz surprises us, hits the quarterback, fumbles, and they take it the other way. And we lose the game because we didn't appreciate the significance and the meaning of the moment. And we talked about this. Like, I have no doubt in my classes, one of the things that I'm drawn to is looking at charts of times when horrible things happen, and it's taught me that I do believe looking at your transits, looking at your chart is trauma prevention. Because like that's traumatic for the running back that didn't see the safety blitz and the quarterback got hit and they scored and we lost the game. That's a traumatic experience, and you'll get cut. You'll lose your job if you do that too much in football. So we really learn and I've learned this in relationships. There's certain times in relationships you can kind of mess around, but there's a certain moments where your partner's stuff is up and your stuff is up. And if you don't recognize that moment, you're going to traumatize each other. And those wounds, and especially a committed relationship, they're hard to heal and they take a long time. But if you recognize the moment, maybe I need to go for a walk right now. I'm telling you, when my wife, Capricorn moon, Capricorn rising, when she's in one of those moods, I grab the boy and I say, we're going to Chuck E. Cheese. Mama needs some time by herself.
Dude, no, we do that in our nightly meetings. I'll be like, okay, Mars is hitting both of our Uranus this week. What are we going to do if we get in a conflict? What's our conflict container? Like, what do we do? Because you're right, dude. It's like, I don't want that blitz coming at me. Like, we are going to get in this fight consciously. Hey, well, okay, so Ricky, I'm coming up with something here, which is, okay, the guru effect. Like, you have what it takes to be a guru because you're so strong. Now, I think it's interesting though what I'm feeling here. First of all, your student Brian is doing awesome. Like you're doing a good job and Brian is doing a good job because like the way he's talking, I'm like really good technical astrologer, really good philosophical astrologer. So like really good job on both sides there. And then also, are you more of a football coach or are you more of a guru? And like, because I can see all these dudes like needing a coach, like an astrological coach. Like, like how do you envision that?
Well, I mean, like I said, wax on, wax off. My wax on, wax off, right, was playing football, but more importantly, probably spent more time sitting in front of the coach and listening how the coach is getting us to perform better than we know we can, right? And I don't, right, philosopher, guru, right, these Jupiter ninth house kinds of ideas that in any head coach's jobs, you're going to see philosophy books. So a head coach is a preacher and a philosopher.
Oh.
And he's got to get everyone on the team on the same page, right? Headed for the same goal, right? It's real. So that's just the world I grew up in. And I apply that same idea of being a team to life. I think we're all cells in the body of humanity. We're all on the same team. And we have to know our gifts and our talents and appreciate those of others to be able to work well together. So, like, to me, I just don't like having even a conversation where we don't accomplish anything. I'm like, life is too short, right? If we're having a conversation, there's something here. Let's not waste time. Let's see what we're really doing and let's do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I want
I
to
mean,
be like
I'm
the I want to be the coach next to you, like on the field with all these dudes. I'll be like, all right, let me at Steve. Yeah, yeah, I can handle this Mars or whatever.
this kind of coaching, it's not really a team. I mean, if I was coaching a team, I would definitely try to figure out how to take everyone's astrology and you find a way to help it make us win, help us play better. But the coaching I do, it really is one-on-one, and I call it soul training because I honestly I don't care about someone's personality. I really, really don't care, right? For better or for worse. I'm all like, what's the deeper stuff in there? You know, because to me, the personality just kind of gets in the way a lot of times. With astrology, the personality can become a beautiful thing because it's the tool that's using to express who someone is on a deeper level. But most people are their personality is so twisted, trying to be something that they're not really meant to be. So I just kind of discard the personality and I'm trying to activate the chart in the person to try to wake them up to those potentials.
Brian, okay, I have to know, do you use astrology in your personal relationships, like with dating and things like that?
Yeah.
How's it helped you in that fashion?
Um, uh, most with friends and people that I live with, it's helped me be more appreciative of them, right? Like kind of what Ricky's talking about is like the personality, right, is there. And right, if they're my friends or I'm living with them, like obviously there's something about the personality that I'm fine enough with. Uh, but to appreciate more what's going on internally for them, to just like not get upset with people, right? And then for me, life is just a lot more pleasant and enjoyable, and people are more fun to be around when I'm not upset.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little, Brian. Okay,
Please.
yeah. So one of the things when I first met Brian, we were doing something like Zoom or Discord, and I was kind of you see, you know how I am, Andrew. I was making fun. I was kind of making fun of him, and the one thing that jumped out to me was how cheap he was. And I'm saying that from my perspective, or whatever. But I could tell because it kept coming up, like money, like holding. I didn't know him, but I kept making fun of him because he's cheap. And then when I met him, I looked at his chart and I saw Saturn in the second house. I was like,
You're
wow.
like, thank God you're acting on your personality, otherwise it'd be just a jerk.
but but I think in personal relationships, I think the value of astrology is your stuff. So when someone starts to activate it, it's harder to blame it on them. It's to realize, oh, they got my stuff. And I think we're in appreciating the significance of the moment. We're in a better place to navigate it. You know? And so one of the things that I've noticed tend to show up for Brian a lot is around money stuff when it comes to dating. And so if you're comfortable, Brian, kind of
Yeah.
talking about how learning about your chart has helped you navigate or manage that dynamic.
Um, well, yeah, it's a little tough to say, tough to find the words to answer this question. It feels like this has been more of a subtle shift. But it goes back to your Saturn question that you often pose is this worth it?
Yeah.
Right? Is this worth it? And right, I would find myself like, oh, attracted to a woman and like try to date, pursue whatever, right, whatever wording you want to use. And also be like, man, this is like really expensive, right? And then so it's like, uh man, you know what? Maybe before I get like really close with a person and start like really like getting closer with her, I should I should slow down, meet her a little bit more, understand our dynamics, like get to know each other better and see if this is worth it, right? Because if she's worth it, like if this relationship is worth it, then right, then whatever cost, whatever expense is going towards something valuable, as opposed to like, oh, like I'm just like uh settling might be a word people use, but like I'm just feeling a little bit lonely, you
Right.
know? And so um and but then I start making decisions that are just not like I do think I start making decisions that in the end don't really feel worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, this is so good. I'm glad we're having this conversation. So Brian has the Saturn in the second in a square aspect to Venus in the fifth.
Dang.
You know, and just kind of what I started was I was talking about the difficult part of that, but the way he talked about it, it's like that's how I might counsel someone how to navigate Saturn square Venus, right?
Yeah,
Slow
really that the
down.
money the money that love is hampered by the cost of doing it. Like that is what's hampering the Venus. There's like the cost of it.
Well,
Brian,
but it's the cost of it. But again, like Brian was saying to me, that's what allows us to get to the question of is it worth it?
mm,
Because Saturn can tend to give a sense of lack, especially if we go too fast.
mm.
And the way he just talked about it, of how he talks to himself, because it's like you recognize a certain dynamic inside of yourself that tends to not feel good. And if you can understand the component parts that dynamic is built out of, you can start to reimagine how those parts might work together.
Well, then my remedy artist mind is like, well, one remedy for Saturn is structure, discipline, and planning. So if I were Brian, I'd be like having boundaries about it. Be like, I plan to pay. I have $50 a month for ladies expenses on ladies, and I'm like totally doing the remedy because like I have Mars in the second house, and I get extremely aggressive about money. Like when people take my money, mooch off me, or require me to pay for them, I'm just like, yeah, you're not very hot anymore, that's for sure. Like so like I feel Brian's pain and I want to remedy that situation. Yeah, Brian, no
Yeah.
girl's worth paying
But
for.
yeah, and I think the money like it's
Well,
definitely
she should
relevant
pay
and
for herself, Ricky.
it's definitely relevant and it's definitely there, right? I won't pretend like it's not, but I think it's a little bit more still more on the surface than like what's deeper in there because like as Ricky was mentioning the square between Saturn and Venus, there's also the square between Jupiter and Venus, right? It's that nice T square.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And so, right, one of the tendencies that Ricky's pointing out that I've picked up on is like, oh, as I meet a girl, I start crushing on her, and it's like, boom, go like all the way and like so much Jupiter to it. And then it's like, oh, maybe I made a mistake here, right? And it's like just taking the opportunity to slow down, right? To slow down and see if this is worth it. And so like there's the money component to it, but also just like that's just an avenue to get here of like, right. If I want to find a partner and somebody who I can like build a family with and like do things with, big things, then you know what? Maybe I should meet them more than once.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, is your Venus in
Oh,
Taurus or Scorpio?
Taurus.
Taurus.
Taurus. Oh, interesting. What a beautiful T square. Yeah, and think about like structuring like a fund or something to for when you go into your love manias. You need a fund. Like, and then you can plan for it. Like when Jupiter's gonna hit the G square, you're like, I'm ready for my fund here because I'm gonna go like buy some ladies some dinner just to look at them. No, I don't know.
Yeah. So, piggybacking on the topic of relationships, Andy and I mentioned as you start to learn astrology, you start to advance, and then it is kind of alienating. So, have you had any kind of experience like that, Brian?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because there's so few people to have these types of conversations with, right? Because some of the things that we're talking about, I think all of us have access to it, but part of the access is learning the language, and so few people have. Like even the people that I meet here in town that like this is a town where a lot of people are into astrology. But when I talk to them, like, and I present to them the idea of, okay, let's be clear here. We're talking about the bodies in the sky, the sun, the moon, Mercury, that those planets, those things way, 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 way out there, they have influence over me, right? Let's be clear that that's what we're saying, right? And how are they doing it, right? Through vibration, through energy, through a frequency, through a force, right? That we can't see, but it's happening, right? And they go, oh, like they like so many people when I have been presenting that to them, they're like, I've never thought about it like that. And I'm just kind of like, well, then what did you think astrology was, right? And so, right, even that, like, right,
Well, he's driving it home there. That's
but then Ricky like mentioned like before I moved to California, like I got into astrology, but my friends didn't. So then all of a sudden, the more I got into it and the more I started walking this path again, um, the more I felt myself moving away from those people because I would hang out with them and I just started like seeing it in a different way of, man, you know how many times we've had this same exact conversation? Like literally, the words you're saying, I know what you're gonna say next because you've said it how many times? Like this, like there's nothing like this is I mean, I guess it's I like going back and watching an old TV show that I've watched before. Like there's a comfort and familiarity and there's still a ton of love and appreciation for these people and like some of them are family, right? But I can tell that they're not looking at things and thinking about things the way that I am. And sometimes they appreciate my perspective, right? But it's hard to have a back and forth as much as all of a sudden I feel like, man, I'm over here just preaching at my friends and like I don't know how much they like it. I don't know how much I like it just connecting did become a little bit more, or keeping that connection with them became a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
But
So,
not in a like I want to be
oh, I
clear
get it.
that
No,
not in a
but
bad way.
I mean, I'd go a little bit stronger. So we got like 30 seconds, and I just want to say, thought came to my mind when you were talking. My wife Linnea, she says astrology making people interesting again. And it's very difficult to be interesting if you don't have self-knowledge. If you don't. So that's what I'm hearing from you is you're gaining all of this knowledge about yourself and you're realizing that the people you're talking to, they don't have a well, maybe they have the curiosity, but they don't have access to that level of understanding and knowledge about who they are. So they're not very interested.
Hmm. Yeah, I always often wonder how people stay interesting in themselves when they're not an astrologer. I'm like, I don't know, you're just like a static doll. Whatever. Okay, well, Brian, hey, you really made my day. Like, thank you for coming on here. And Rick,
Uh,
you really showed up with a guest, and I'll have to look at the schedule. I think we have someone coming next week, but the more guests on your side, the better, because I really can't wait to see what kind of what happens if we let you funnel in your crowd. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you. Thank you both.
Yes. Brian, it's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you as well. And again, thanks for having me on the show. This was a lot of fun. This is a great conversation. I feel like we have a lot more that we could go into and get into. Maybe you
You're
bring
always
me
welcome
back.
back.
Yes.
Maybe you
Go
guys
through
bring me
Ricky then.
back.
We'll bring you back
Yes.
for
And
sure.
I teach on Tuesdays if you want to come over talk to me. All right. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right,
Andy.
ciao.